I'm Duncan McLeod, and this is TechCentral's TCS Plus, brought to you today by Workday. Now, I'm really looking forward to this next interview. It's the first of 6 interviews we'll be doing with Workday under the title Change Makers, with executives from the enterprise cloud software provider Workday. Now, they'll be sharing insights into the company, the market it plays in, how enterprises in South Africa can utilize its technologies and products to expand their businesses. My guest for episode 1 in this series is Kiv Moodley, or Kiv for short. Kiv is MD of Workday South Africa, and he has a 20-plus year career in the enterprise software industry. So I'm sure he has plenty of insights to share with our audience today. Kiv, welcome to TechCentral. Thanks for making the time.
Thank you so much, Duncan. Good to be here.
Great. Kiv, tell me a bit about your background. I know you've worked for a number of major players in the enterprise software industry over the years, but maybe take us through a bit of your background and how you came to Workday.
Yeah, no problem. I think, looking around your studio, I had some fun playing around with some of your old gear. Gave me some memories
like that
of
ancient router up there.
Like that ancient 28.28K broadband router. So it brings back memories.
Definitely not broadband.
Dial-up. So it does bring back some memories from back in the day. So I fell in love with technology and computers at a very, very early age.
Okay. What was your first computer?
It was a 286, and it's an interesting story. So my dad worked for oil and gas industry for roughly about 30 years. He had a tough working career, working through apartheid and not having the advantages that he probably could have in terms of being able to understand how to use computers and computer literacy. So he did something very different. Mm-hmm. So when all my friends and cousins were having Nintendos and having Ataris, right, he went the opposite way. He took a lot of the textbooks that he had at work. He printed out manuals on how to operate DOS, and he brought them home. And I was 9 years old at the time and actually learned how to program without having a computer. So the first computer that we had, which I think took him over 10 years to pay off, was a 286 computer. Amazing. So it was a 286 VGA, so we had color, which was quite fortunate. But that was my first step into understanding technology. And thanks to my dad, because by going through that process, I actually taught him how to be computer literate. So
amazing. So what did you learn to program in on that machine?
So I started off with BASIC. Then I moved into Turbo Pascal. When I was in Matric, I actually wrote a mini ERP program for a distribution company.
You were made for this industry.
I was still a techie at heart. I don't like to talk about it, but but my dad also got me into understanding things like Office back in the day. Okay. My dad was an activist, so we would always print out posters on change and driving change in the community. And I was reflecting on this the other day that I was designing stuff on Printmaster and all these other DOS-based printing programs in the late 90s, which.
Right. Amazing. Okay, so when did you decide that IT was going to be your career?
I just had an affinity to technology, so I loved it. I definitely played more games back then than I do play today, but I was always passionate about understanding how computers worked. Especially with DOS. DOS was probably the biggest eye opener for me. And then when Windows 95 came out, I just couldn't believe that this immersion of video and audio coming in and loading, the Windows 95 disk and a CD-ROM. I think that blew my mind before even getting to the internet and those capabilities. So I always had it, I guess, in me. And as technologies changed over time, I've tried my best to stay close so I don't lag behind in terms of what's taking place. But I've always been a technologist at heart.
Okay. Did you study in the IT field?
I did. So I studied a bit of what is then a computer engineering diploma for a year. So, from a background perspective, I didn't have an opportunity to go to university. So I took the opportunity that I had. And while studying, and I was based in Durban back then, I actually took a year of working for a computer, sort of like a computer workshop. Right. And I worked with them for free for a year. And I really understood how networking worked. Okay. How to repair computers, how to repair circuit boards. And that gave me a different perspective in terms of understanding hardware, electronics, and a different affinity to technology as well.
So what was your first paid-for job?
First paid-for job? It's a weird one. I worked for Metrorail.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. So I worked for Metrorail, and the year was 2000. I worked for Metrorail in Durban. I was still quite young. I was 19, and I was given the role of a technical supervisor. And there was ticketing machines that everyone needed to get a ticket from whenever you boarded a train, but they would break on a daily basis. So the company that I worked for actually won a contract, and it's the same company that the computer shop that I worked for that won the contract. And I was doing board level circuit board repairs from resistors, transistors, going through it and really understanding the dynamics of that worked. That was my first paying job.
Incredible. Yeah. And how did you transition into the software space?
That was a different debacle. So I moved up to Johannesburg in 2001. I worked for a company called Maxtech.
All Durban people seem to end up in Johannesburg.
It seems like a semigration now. We can use that word. So I moved to Johannesburg in 2001. I worked for back then a company which was listed in the top 100 IT companies in South Africa called Maxtech. So they're a distributor. Yeah. So I started off as a 184th employee. Spent a lot of time working there, understanding data storage, networking. And from there, I had an opportunity to join Oracle. So I was at Oracle for almost close to 6 years. And then from Oracle, I was at SAP for a very similar period as well. Okay. So that was my break, 12 years working for Oracle and SAP.
Doing what what sort of roles?
I was predominantly in sales, so predominantly in enterprise sales and understanding the software that both those organizations had, the value proposition they had in the market. And then in 2008, Workday entered South Africa, and that was my opportunity to be part of it.
2008?
Sorry, 2018.
18, okay.
2018.
5 years ago.
Yeah. 2018, 5 years ago. So Workday came into South Africa, and I had the opportunity to join Workday, which I'm very, very privileged about. And when I was at SAP, I was looking at a career change, and I was really looking at the biggest disruptors that were out there in the market, and Workday was one of them. And Workday entered in 2018, and I joined Workday since, and I've been with the company from that period.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So let's talk a bit about Workday. It's an American company. Is it listed?
Yes.
It is listed. Nasdaq?
Nasdaq.
Yeah. It's on the Nasdaq, based in, I think, just outside San Francisco.
It's an area called Pleasanton. It's not well known of, but it's just outside San Fran.
Yeah. That's just on the other side of the bay, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
It's about a 45-minute train journey from
just south of Oakland, if I'm not mistaken. Or have I got that wrong?
I'm not sure.
No, okay.
I won't comment.
I don't know my Silicon Valley that well, but it's in the Bay Area around San Francisco. Okay, and it was founded by the people who founded PeopleSoft.
Correct.
David Duffield, and there was another individual.
Anil Bushri.
Anil Bushri. Yeah. Of course, PeopleSoft was acquired by Oracle in, I think it was 2005, and that was a very aggressive, hostile acquisition by Oracle. PeopleSoft did not want to sell to Oracle, but the deal did eventually go through. I presume that Workday is better protected than PeopleSoft was against aggressive acquisitions like this.
It is. I think by design. So it was a hostile acquisition. I think it left our founders in a bit of distress in terms of where they were. But at the same time, it came about opportunity as well. So our founders, after the acquisition took place, they met at a diner called Truckee Diner.
Truckee?
Yeah.
Okay.
And they sat together and they had a piece of paper, and Dave Duffield and Neil had a discussion about what did they do next.
Right.
And they took all the elements of what was great about PeopleSoft, and they took elements about where enterprise software was at the time. Took a lot of inspiration from companies like Google, Facebook, and Twitter, I think, at the time. And I think the biggest enterprise software company that existed back then, which was cloud-based, was Salesforce.
Right.
And Anil Bushri and Mark Benioff from Salesforce are actually pretty good friends as well.
Okay.
So they then decided that let's do this again.
Okay.
And they had the benefit of time. They had the benefit of money as well, which is always a good benefit to have. And based on that and understanding the challenges that existed in enterprises in 2005, they formed Workday. They decided on building a company that was highly disruptive in enterprise software. And again, I think that the best opportunity they had was the school fees of understanding what really worked well with PeopleSoft, understanding the industry, understanding what customers wanted. They took advantage of that. But at the same time, knowing that there were major, major challenges that still exist today in 2023 when it comes to companies that are still on-prem. When it comes to hardware, when it comes to networking, when it comes to upgrades, when it comes to different versions of databases and different tiers of architecture. And they completely looked at that and disrupted that in 2005 when we formed the company.
Okay. So tell me a bit about Workday. Where is it positioned in the enterprise software market relative to its competitors?
Sure.
Why should companies consider Workday over the other options that are available in the market?
Look, it's a good question. And I think if you ask people in the industry about who Workday is, I think we probably are a lot more known now in South Africa than we were a few years ago. We're still predominantly known as an HCM or an HR player, human capital management. However, when we started the company from the very beginning, we also had a finance platform. So we do have a finance ERP, core financial accounting that we offer as well. So Workday does two things fundamentally well. We manage the two biggest assets for any organization. One is people and the other one is money.
Okay.
And we do it on one platform. So that's the value proposition we have. Every one of our customers today is on the same version. Very similar to what you might be used to today on your smartphone.
And it's all cloud-based?
It's all cloud-based. It's true cloud. It's public cloud as well. It's not private cloud.
Okay.
So it's public cloud. We don't use databases. We use something cool called in-memory object orientation. Big word. I like to look at it as an atom. So we almost have these different atom points of data, which we reference within Workday. And with everything that we do within the core technology that we have, there's no integration because everything is pre-built. Mm-hmm. So the value proposition we have to our customers is that we do believe that we provide tangible, measurable business value that drives business outcomes. We typically compete with your tier one providers, your Oracles and SAPs, because we're a tier one partner. But at the same time, even though we provide a lot of great value, we think that the opposite also applies. We see ourselves as the lowest risk option to our customers because repeatedly, based on having a cloud-based solution, based on also having a customer success rate of over 95% in the last 10 years, I think we've just announced 96% this month, if I'm not mistaken. We know what we're doing when it comes to cloud. We know how to drive successful projects. We know how to drive change. And we've learned a lot from our customers along the way. So that kind of makes us a lot more unique than our competitors, where they've got discrete solutions, discrete systems that still need to be patched, still needs to be updated. And sometimes, even though it's regarded as cloud, these instances sit in physically different data centers and different domains as well.
Yeah. Very, very often in these big projects, and it tends to be the on-premises ones, we see companies running into big trouble, cost overruns, projects overruns, people getting fired, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And there have been stories about this in the headlines just in the last few weeks. Because you're cloud-based, because you're a new age tech company, if I can call you that, does that make it easier to do these sort of deployments, to go into companies and have these conversations with them? And actually, because it's cloud-based, deploy it a lot quicker than you might be able to do with your traditional ERP type on-premises installation?
There's definitely benefits. When we went through COVID, a lot did not change for us in terms of how we deploy.
Yeah.
So we've had deployments locally with customers going live and globally as well. And based on the approach and how we deploy, based on the methodology, it makes it a lot easier in terms of how you go through a project journey and how do you look at project methodology. However, there's still basic principles that will apply for any project, whether it's cloud-based on-prem. Things like ensuring you have project governance, ensuring that you have the right business scope, ensuring that you have the right executive sponsors, and that still remains.
Right.
So even though you transition to the cloud, that still becomes an important secret sauce outside of the technology that leads to a successful project.
Just because it's not on premises doesn't mean it's a small project.
It doesn't mean it's a small project, and but there's definitely economies of scale. We like to. Besides our technology being a differentiator, the way we deploy is also quite different.
Okay.
We do prototyping quite early in terms of how we deploy. And for me, a picture speaks 1,000 words. So when a prospective customer becomes a customer, has the ability to work in a Workday system quite early, during the project journey, that also helps them really identify the kinks, identify the business processes and what works for them as well.
Okay. So Workday South Africa have been in the market for about 5 years now.
Yeah.
Did Workday enter this market on the back of a big client win? How did Workday decide to invest in South Africa?
We did.
Okay.
So I won't mention the client's name,
Sure.
but there was a demerger of a bank.
Okay.
And based on that, Workday was able to enter South Africa. And that bank's been with the customer ever since we started our journey.
Okay. Is financial services a key component or focus area for Workday? Which other industries do you focus on?
Yeah, it's a good question. So we have quite a few key industries that we look at. So mainly professional services, high-tech companies, healthcare, media. We do a lot of good work when it comes to manufacturing as well in specific companies. But any company in South Africa, we're looking at more service-based companies providing a service. We're pretty strong in that. So you would also see globally, it's a bit of a pattern for us. And coming back to the founders in 2005, when we started the company, Workday is obviously very deliberate about what we do. We're deliberate in terms of the design, and we're also very deliberate about the go-to-market.
Okay.
So I think coming back to your question around how we deploy, we sometimes will speak to a prospective customer and really understand that they might not be at the right maturity for where they need to be.
Yeah.
And give them advice and give them counsel that maybe you should, crawl before you can walk, or maybe you should look at sweating this existing asset a bit more. And as your requirements possibly change over time, then, Workday could possibly become a viable option.
Okay. Given that focus, are there industries where you choose not to work?
Yeah, in South Africa right now. So firstly, even though we've been in the country from 2018, we don't have a focus geography-wise outside of South Africa.
Okay.
So we only look at South African headquartered businesses. And for now, we don't have a focus on public sector.
Okay.
It's also very deliberate. So globally, we evaluate public sector very clearly to understand the local requirements, to understand the data requirements, to understand the product fit. And we do a proper due diligence and gap fit to understand that. We've not even done that in South Africa yet.
Okay.
So currently, it's not an opportunity for us. And we typically and traditionally have been private sector focused.
Private sector focused.
Private sector focused, yeah.
Okay, and the rest of Africa, is Workday involved in other markets in Africa at all, indirectly?
It's exciting. Yeah. So we have customers that have presence across the continent, but they would traditionally be headquartered in a different country.
Okay.
So you could have many South African businesses that are customers of ours that have operations throughout the rest of Africa, and they run with Workday. But for now, from a go-to-market perspective, we haven't expanded. We do see major opportunities, and we always get consultation from various partners of ours, and also some customers as leads coming through in terms of us entering, but not at the moment. I think when we look at the data, we look at something called the total addressable market, and in South Africa, in the private sector, we still have a lot of work to do as a team. So I think we want to make sure we have a few more customers under our belt. Having a lot more customer success in terms of successful projects. And once we've had that, then we'll reevaluate our position.
Make sure you can deliver with the capacity you have now, rather than overstretching yourselves and going into adjacent industries where you may end up being too thinly spread on the ground.
100%. So, there's a few things within our DNA that stands out. So we've got a customer success of 96%. We're one of the only...
How do you measure that, by the way?
It's through surveys. Okay. So we do surveys throughout the year, and quite aggressively with key stakeholders across our customer base. And we measure it. So, in the last 10 years, we've averaged over 95%. And this month, we've hit 96. We see ourselves as the lowest risk option. That's measured by delivering on time, on budget. So very few technology players today, I think coming back to your point on some of the recent media articles as well, a lot of projects do run over based on a lot of the times on a technology, based on how projects run as well. But we deliver on time, on budget. Our stats there is about 94% in terms of the frequency of doing it in Northern Europe and South Africa. We see ourselves as the lowest risk option as well. So by having that DNA, we want to make sure that we can continuously deliver success in South Africa. And once we reach a point of scale, and have a better understanding of what we want to do, then we can evaluate other markets. But we're very far from doing so at the moment.
Okay. Take me through how you work with your clients in South Africa. What's the engagement like? This is a cloud-based service, so a lot of these services you just purchase online with a credit card, I presume, or similar arrangement. But how do you actually engage with your clients? Say a big bank is looking to Workday's solutions.
Yeah.
What does that engagement process look like?
It's quite interesting. It's very consultative. It's highly consultative. So even though, from a SaaS perspective, everything can be acquired just based by having a software contract, it sometimes takes at least 18 to 24 months plus to get there. We've been consulting with some prospective customers for 5 years already.
Good grief.
Where they're still not ready for their journey. So it's highly consultative. What we would typically do is we would understand the stakeholder, understand the organization, understand their pain points, understand their growth journey, understand the challenges that they have today. And then we will take a step back and really do an assessment in terms of, okay, are we the right fit? And then going through that process, we do something a bit differently than compared to some of our other competitors. We do a business case, which is highly consultative. We'll interview candidates or we'll interview employees from the organization. We'll send them surveys in terms of them completing for us to get data. And then we present them a case for change, which is why Workday? How can we help the organization grow? The impact to the organization, coming back to tangible, measurable business value. And typically that will get presented to stakeholders or to boards, and a company would make a decision based on that. But again, what makes us different is, after a customer goes live, pretty much about a year after going live, we come back and we reassess the business case, and that's called a value realization study, where we evaluate if the project was successful and if the KPIs that we deemed to make the project successful in the beginning, has been realized.
Oh, that's good, because I think a lot of vendors will simply
walk away,
sign it and walk.
Yeah, and that's kind of the difference when you look at on-prem, and a lot of other cloud providers might be doing that today, where it's pretty easy to sign a check and then walk away. And coming back to your question about what makes us unique is we stay. So we definitely, as much as we have commercial options for prospective customers to sign for 3 years or 5 years, we're really looking for a 10-year plus long-term engagement. And the only way you're going to get there is by spending time with your customers. So we have really close relationships with our customers today. And we continuously have a feedback loop that's quite dynamic to understand how do we improve the product, how do we improve efficiencies in the project, but also in terms of our offering, what possibly needs to change over a period of time.
So you must get some very good and valuable insight back from your clients and through this process. Yeah. What are they telling you that Workday is bringing to them? What are the sort of top 3 things generally that clients are saying, well, amazing, this is what Workday has done for this organization?
I would, before I get to the technology aspect, the one thing that has been mentioned to myself by quite a number of executives recently is I always talk about the fact that, and we talk about it from work ethos, that our technology, our platform, and our innovation is our biggest differentiator. And, by the way, if you look at the stats, we invest more in R&D than most of the competitors out there from a percentage of turnover. But I think the biggest thing that stands out is actually our team. I'm really fortunate to have an excellent team in South Africa and globally. And that's the first step. So I think that the one thing that stands out is we have people that really want to get into the weeds to understand what's going wrong or what's going right, be quite inquisitive, be quite critical at the same time, give real-time feedback to a company. So I think our people is probably the biggest differentiator. I think the second thing is in terms of how we run our project governance, our project committees and executive sponsors, we're very fortunate that, in the last 5 years, we've had several executives from Workday globally that have managed to come through on a regular basis and support projects. So that's key. I think the biggest thing that our customers are able to achieve today is data-driven analytics dynamically. And being able to take the data from Workday and make sense of it and create action in real time.
Okay. So what's a business intelligence component to the software?
Yeah, it's built in. So, traditionally you would have 3-tier architectures and databases and, data pools and data lakes and collecting all the data. We have a lot of that built into Workday. Okay. It's predictive as well. So now we have the element using generative AI to also tell stories and predict certain scenarios. And that's really helping executives in the boardroom. So, no longer can you go into a boardroom and ask simple questions about what's my headcount? What's my average time to hire? How many days do I have to close? Have we made budget? Are we exceeding budget? How are we forecasting? So with Workday, you're able to make those decisions, understand the what, but then you also understand the why, and you can take action from that in real time.
All right, Kiv, I know you're quite passionate about leadership. What approach are you bringing to Workday South Africa from a leadership perspective?
It's a good question. I am quite passionate about leadership. I love coaching. I love mentoring. So it's something that I've been doing for quite some time. So inherently, that's built into my management style. We're kind of fortunate to have a small team. And from a hierarchy perspective, I've made it a lot more dynamic than it possibly should be.
Okay.
So, having a small team gives you the ability to understand everyone's strengths and weaknesses. So we've used a bit of our own technology. So at Workday, we use something called Skills Cloud. And that allows us to move away from job profiling to understanding the skills that exist within any team. And we do that commercially today. So that was my first step to really understand our team, everyone's strengths, weaknesses, passions.
Okay.
Also, there's an element of side hustle. what really drives people to get up in the morning. And once I understood that, I thought about, what do I do? How do I expand my team that's fairly young and relatively small? And how do we operate at scale? Because the companies that we compete with, have much larger numbers of employees and bigger structures than us. So I deployed a concept called distributed leadership. And I took our team based on who they are and their core capabilities, and I assigned them responsibilities that's really suits them in terms of their personality, their dynamics, their growth as well. And honestly, by doing that, I've created such a dynamic team, such a diverse team that allows me to do so much more.
Okay.
And I recently did a TED Talk with Deloitte, and I spoke about the fact that it was a Deloitte study done in Australia that diverse teams outperform non-diverse teams by 80%.
Wow. So
we have a very dynamic, very diverse team. I've followed the concept of distributed leadership, which really has worked well for us. And, we're a good case study that Workday is also using, because at some point Workday is looking to emerge into other countries. But we've really rolled it out quite successfully in terms of understanding our team, understanding individuals' passions, their skill sets, what drives them, and again, their growth. And I've been able to assign specific individuals with responsibilities that matches that.
To take me through the Change Makers initiative that you've launched, what is it and what are you hoping to achieve with it?
Yeah, so we all know that technology enables change, but it takes people to drive change. In South Africa, I've been really fortunate over my 20-year-old career of working with C-level executives and some senior managers that have driven change successfully within the projects that they've run. And honestly, in the last 5 years with Workday, I've just been completely blown away by the talent that we have and how decisions get made and how thought leadership exists and the mindset that our executives have. So part of this initiative, Change Makers powered by Workday, is we want to showcase during this podcast series some of the executives that we have within our customer base, telling their story about who they are and also how technology has helped them enable the change and how they've driven it within their organizations.
Great. Well, I look forward to unpacking that in a great amount of detail throughout this series with Workday. But Kiv, before I let you go, just tell me a bit about where you're taking Workday. Where's this organization going in South Africa in the next 5 years? What can your clients look forward to? What can we expect from Workday as it positions itself in the IT industry here in the country?
Look, we're definitely growing. We moved offices at the start of the year. So we're hoping that with growth comes a few things. So we definitely want to grow our customer base. So we want to have more successful projects. We want our partners to grow at the same time in terms of the ecosystem. But by doing that, we're also going to be stimulating the economy. So the more Workday certified professionals we have in South Africa, the better feeling we have in terms of understanding that we are creating the growth we need. Globally, we have about 20,000 certified consultants. We've got some work to do in South Africa in terms of making sure that we can build the right academies and making Workday education more readily available. So that's definitely part of the plan. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Great. So full series coming up. If anyone's keen not to miss any of those episodes, please do subscribe to this show on YouTube. You can do that at youtube.com/TechCentral, or simply go into your favorite podcasting app, whether it's Spotify or Apple Podcasts, and search TechCentral, one word. You'll find all our shows there. Hit the subscribe button and you'll never miss an episode. Kiv Moodley is MD at Workday South Africa. Thank you so much for joining us in the studio and sharing your insights with us today. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Duncan. Appreciate it.